Death. Let's talk about death. People die. I've always been very indifferent about death my whole life. I remember I was kind of a little kid when my grandpa died and went to the funeral and people were crying and there were sad songs sung. And I really didn't feel anything. People die. The end. I miss people that have died. I just always thought I should feel more and be more sad or cry or something. Anyway, well, I remember when my dad died. It was sad, but at the same time, he had been in such pain, agonizing, excruciating pain for so long, that it was really kind of a huge relief to know that he had been able to progress and get some relief to this torturous pain. Why do we have to wait all the way to the end? Is it really so wrong, or is it a sin? I'm trying to get my mind and my arms around this concept of checking out early, especially when there's cancer and extreme pain and suffering involved. Why does someone have to wait all the way to the end of an agonizing process that we know is going to end in death fairly soon? Now, what is fairly soon? That's debatable. I mean, cancer can go on for years. When my dad was dying, the idea was posed to go early. And my dad's response was to the effect of, he was meant to suffer until the end. What does that even mean? God wants him to suffer all the way to the very end? Suffer as long as possible? So this question has haunted me for many years, partially about, I feel some guilt that it was such a relief to know that my dad wasn't in pain anymore when he was finally released from this life. And even though I miss him, and I missed him then, I was kind of cheering for him to have gotten out. I do miss him, and I wish he could have been able to meet my kids and see how great they are. So for some reason, it's kind of come to the forefront with me recently, and a little disturbing that death really isn't sad to me. Apathetic? I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm apathetic about death. It's just that, well, if I'm being truly honest about it, I see death as a release from this life. Sometimes I see this life as a learning exercise. I think I flunked the class. Have I learned what I came to class to learn? I think I probably missed the point. Sometimes I see life as a punishment. This disturbs me some too. I've realized somewhat recently that I've had this outlook on life pretty much my whole life. I've felt like I'm here to be punished. I can't logically explain this. It's just been my attitude about life as long as I can remember. I'm not proud to say that, but why do I feel like it's punishment? I'm not really sure. But it's the way I tend to look at things. Maybe I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. And really, when I look at my life logically, I have an awesome life. It is awesome to be me. I have a great job. I have a great family. I live in a wonderful, beautiful house. So why do I look at life as a punishment? I haven't been able to explain. Maybe it's related around money. I've had a bad attitude about money as long as I can remember. I think I said this earlier in a different video that I get angry when I have to pay for things. I'm on my way to a store right now to buy food for some of our pets, and I'm kind of angry about it. I should be glad that I have the money to do it. Why am I angry about it? Well, partly I'm angry about it because I grow my own food for these pets that I'm feeding, but sometimes my culture crashes and the food is all dead and I can't use it. So I have to go pay, for food for these frogs. They're beautiful little blue poison dart frogs that are just amazing and wonderful to watch. And we got them as an anniversary gift several years ago. And I have to feed fruit flies to these frogs. And it's kind of a hassle to maintain active fruit fly cultures so I can feed the frogs every day. Lately I've had a really struggle keeping my fruit fly cultures producing, so I'm going to buy fruit fly culture. Anyway, what does this have to do with anything? Nothing other than, instead of being happy that I have the money to pay for the fruit flies, I'm kind of mad about it. So it seems like in my life, every time I just get caught up, I'm not behind on my money anymore. Some big expense rolls around that I didn't anticipate, and I'm behind again. This seems to be a recurring theme in my life. Maybe that's part of the root of it, is I can never seem to get ahead. Maybe it's just my mismanagement of money, and if I'd budget and manage my money better, it would be better. But it seems like I just get caught up and I get smacked down again. So I think most of my pessimism and negative attitude about life revolves around money. Every other thing that bothers me is really just a little noise. I think that's really what it comes down to. There's just never been enough money as long as I can remember. They say money can't buy happiness. Well, lack of sufficient money has certainly caused me a huge amount of stress and unhappiness. Is it really lack of money, or just that I don't manage my money effectively? It's kind of tough to say. Anyway, the question becomes, if I won the lottery and had enough money, would life still feel like punishment? Is my punishment outlook really all about my views about money? Some deep thoughts I may need to explore a little bit. But I started this about death and my somewhat apathetic view about death. Like I said, apathy really isn't quite the right word. It's more like I'm cheering for the person that's been released. I've always believed that there is life after life. It seems that most people believe, most cultures foster the notion that death is not the end. Probably all religions teach that death is just another rung on the ladder of eternal progression. I don't know if all religions, but it's kind of my perception that religions generally teach that life goes on after we shed the mortal shell. Life might be different, but death is not the end. I've generally been a bit pessimistic and unhappy with my life. I've had some times of super depression, and life has felt like punishment to me. I can use logic and see wonderful things about my life, but I've never been able to get past that. I don't like admitting that I see life this way, but honesty requires it. I try to logic through it and tell myself that my life is wonderful and tell myself that I'm a good guy and, more successful than I ever thought I'd be, things like that. But for some reason, I just don't accept it, or I don't fully believe those kind of statements. So it ends up working kind of in the reverse for me. Now, the whole reason this idea came up, I didn't mean to be so long-winded getting to the point here. The whole reason I came up with this topic is I was listening to a song, and I decided I wanted to know what the song was talking about. It's a song by Avenged Sevenfold. Here they are again. My current favorite band, and the song's called Fiction. To take a step back and give some context, the drummer and pianist, his name is Jimmy Sullivan, died. He died back in 2009. I haven't really known this band for that long. I wasn't a fan back in 2009. But all I knew was that he died of a drug overdose. I was really angry about that. What a waste. Plus, I have some personal experience with people close to me getting deeply involved with drugs. And I have a lot of anger about that and how drugs affect more than just the person into the drug. Anyway, I was judging Jimmy for this overdose. I didn't see it as a suicide. I saw it as an insult. Why did I take it personally? But I don't know. I can't explain that. But I took it personally. When I knew he was singing on a song, I tended to shake my head, kind of in disgust, because I was mad at him. I would try to like the song, but I had a really hard time getting past Jimmy's vocals. Even when I knew it was a song that he played drums or piano on, it was difficult for me to get past it, and I could learn to like the song, but when Jimmy was on the song, because of my judgment of him, I just couldn't get past it. Judgment. I'm gonna stop here for a second. I like to believe that I'm not a judgmental person. But here I found myself judging Jimmy and angry at him for his seeming betrayal of our trust. You know, us as fans of this band. I don't know what it is about this band, Avenged Sevenfold, but they've somehow created an energy, or energy is kind of a stupid word for this maybe, but a venue to feel close to them. I don't really know how to describe how they've done this, but the way that they've incorporated themselves into their music and into the videos that they've created for their music and interviews on YouTube, the way that they were in concert makes at least me feel like I know them, like I'm close to them. I mean, they don't know me at all, but I've followed several of their side projects and subscribed to some things on the internet that are being done by the band members. Like the guitarist, his name is Brian Hayner. He has a guitar lessons workshop on the website, and it's so cool because his dad's also named Brian Hayner. His dad's a guitar player, and he gets his dad on there to teach guitar, and you get to know him and his dad. And there's some funny videos that the bass player plays tricks on the guitar player, and it's just hilarious. My point is, for some reason I feel close to these guys, like I almost know them. And the way the singer sings, he puts so much passion and feeling in his vocals that I just love it. So back to Jimmy. I felt like by overdosing, Jimmy betrayed his best friends. See, this band all grew up together. They were all best friends and buddies since they were little kids. And they got together and started making music, and then Jimmy died. So I was angry and I judged him. Then I decided to look up the words to Fiction because I noticed that the vocals were different on that song. And I didn't know what was different about it. And what I found out was that Jimmy, he made up nicknames for the band. Everybody in the band has a stage name that Jimmy made up. So he called himself The Rev. I can't remember the longer version. It was like The Reverend something. Anyway, everybody just called him The Rev. The guitar player, he calls Sinister Gates. The other guitar player, the rhythm guitar player, Zachy Vengeance. And Matt Sanders is the singer. He calls him M Shadows. Anyway, he wrote this song, Fiction, and he sang it, and he left it for the guys, and it's called Fiction. I'm going to link the song in the description here, but Jimmy sang the song Fiction. Well, 3 days later, Jimmy died, and Fiction was basically Jimmy's goodbye, his suicide note. And in further research, it turns out that Jimmy had a terminal disease. It caused him enormous pain. His doctors told him that he would never live to see age 30. Well, he was 28, and again in nearly unbearable pain, mostly from his heart, that he decided to check out. So Fiction was written and sung by the Rev saying goodbye. The band was devastated. You know, like I said, they've been best friends since they were kids. They were in the middle of producing a new album, and the album was called Nightmare. And they I think they were about halfway through. They decided to go ahead and produce the song Fiction. And kind of hauntingly, M. Shadows, or Matt Sanders, sings along with the Rev on parts of the song, and it's amazing and touching. So this takes me back to my dad, and for some reason I've cried a lot listening to several songs from this album and one from a previous album that really all tie this all together. So the song Fiction, written by Jimmy as a goodbye note, basically. Then after he died, the other band members wrote several goodbye songs basically back to Jimmy to let him know that they miss him and that they're suffering because of their loss, because of his departure. Even though they understand that he was suffering. The entire album Nightmare is dedicated to Jimmy. And anyway, so I want you to listen to Fiction. Then another song was written by the guitar player, Sinister Gates, Brian Hayner. And it's, again, amazing. So Brian wrote a song for Jimmy that's called So Far Away. He doesn't express anger, not judgment, but just a deep loss. Some of the key takeaways from the songs are he just has so many things he wants to tell Jimmy, so many things to share and say, but Jimmy's so far away. And he hopes to someday be reunited with his friend. Another song is Victim. I couldn't find out who wrote Victim, but it's another farewell song full of hurt, full of the hurt and living with the loss. And there's also Save Me. Again, I couldn't figure out who wrote it. And then there's one called Lost It All. Lost It All seems to have some anger in it. Anger that he left. Anger that they're feeling this pain of his loss. And then I want to relate to a song from their previous album, Afterlife, called Brompton Cocktail. And it really describes exactly what happened. The song tells a story of someone who's dying of a terminal disease and wants to feel alive again and pain-free, and believes that there will be peace in the afterlife and that death will release him from the pain he's enduring, and wants to die his way while he feels alive. A Brompton cocktail is a mixture of cocaine, heroin, and alcohol, or similar substances. It's been given to cancer patients back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Jimmy's autopsy confirmed that this is how he died. And the song is basically a plea from someone suffering to be allowed to exit this life and be relieved of his suffering. You know, I feel like I've repeated myself a lot. I'm sorry about that. But I've done a lot of crying over these songs the last week or so. And it's kind of like, because of these songs, I've finally been able to maybe mourn the loss of my dad that I never really did. You know, I've thought about it over the years and wished my dad could meet my kids, but I never really felt a deep sadness or feel like I really mourned his death. I just wanted to share that with you, and I want to link these. I will link these songs in the description, and I hope you like them. If you don't like them, I'm sorry about that. I love it, and a lot just because there's so much meaning behind it for me. Hey, thanks for listening. I know I went on and repeated myself a lot, but that's what's on my mind today. That's what's on Paul's mind.